Welcome, everybody, to Thrive in Your Body with Homeopathy show. I am Monica, your host, and I'm so honored to welcome our guest today. He has true depth of knowledge, expertise, and experience, and he's the perfect guest to introduce you to classical homeopathy today. Dr. Shahram Ayoubzadeh is the Dean of Canadian College of Homeopathic Medicine, as well as a lecturer and clinical supervisor. Although Dr. Shahram practices as a naturopathic doctor and homeopathic physician in Canada, he's also trained as a medical doctor. He is a graduate of the Faculty of Medicine in Dakar, Senegal, specializing in tropical disease and leprosy. Since his arrival in Canada in 1987, he has done extensive study in the field of holistic and natural approaches to healing. In 1990, he obtained his naturopathy doctor title from the Canadian College of Naturopathic Medicine. Soon after, he focused his attention on the field of homeopathy, graduating from the Homeopathic Universalis and Dynamis Schools 3-year advanced program and Master Clinician 2-year program in classical homeopathy. Dr. Ayoubzadeh continues to attend many advanced seminars studying with master homeopathic doctors such as Rajan Sarkar, Jen Scholten, Elise Zimmerman, and Louise Klein. Well, let me bring Dr. Shahram on the screen here. Welcome. Such an honor and pleasure to meet you here, Doctor.
Oh, thank you. Hi, Monica. Hello, everyone.
Very well. Very good. Well, let's just jump right in and ask you the questions. So, Dr. Shahram, you're a medical doctor. What made you decide to dedicate yourself to homeopathy and become a homeopath?
Well, it is a long answer. I try to be as short as possible because there are so many different factors that contributed to my gradual transition from conventional medicine to homeopathic medicine. It was a long journey, I should say. It took over a few years. But the seeds of it was planted when I was going through medical schools. And I had to do a research paper, a thesis, before I graduate. And I decided to do a paper on placebo and doctor-patient relationship because I knew that the quality of the relationship between the doctors and the patient plays a great role in the healing of the patient. We have had courses on that. So I wanted to explore that more, and I wanted to explore the placebo effects. And the more I delve into the subjects, I realized that with every single placebo healing, there is a proof that the body knows how to heal itself. Because when people just heal because they believe in something, it shows that the body has its own healing power. So the question in my mind was, if the body knows how to heal itself, what is blocking it from doing the self-healing? So it looks like the body has the capacity, but it is locked, or it is blocked, or it doesn't know how to do it. And for those cases that the placebo doesn't work, and for those cases that even the conventional medicine doesn't work, which is sometimes a large number of patients, then there has to be something that we can do to unlock the system. So that was in the back of my mind as I was going through reading many research articles on placebo and doctor-patient's relationship. Alongside that, as I was going through the medical system, it was very clear that for infectious diseases, so anything that is caused by parasites, fungus, bacteria, or viruses, if we can identify the source, what is really causing it, like malaria, tuberculosis, leprosy, AIDS, and so on, if we could identify the pathogen and if we could eradicate the pathogen, then the body would heal itself also. So because we know what is the cause. But then when it came to all the chronic diseases that are not infectious by nature, then we really never cure anyone. We only treat symptomatically. We palliate the symptoms. So if you have a high blood pressure, you take a blood pressure pill every day. As soon as you stop your medication, your blood pressure goes up. If you have a migraine headache, you take a pill when you have a migraine, and then it's going to come back again, and you take another pill. So at one point, I realized that we really never cure. We don't even talk about curing chronic diseases. We talk about management of chronic diseases. And then I told myself, as I was going through the neurology, for instance, I remember having a patient with migraine headache, and he has been having migraines for over 10 years. He was consulting our professors of neurology, and he just gave him a new prescription that has come to the market. And he said, well, I'm going to switch you to this. Hopefully this will work better. And I asked him, is he ever going to get rid of his migraine? He said, oh, not with this medication. If he gets rid of it, it's for other reasons, because these medications are only to manage the symptoms. And I told myself, if we don't know how to cure a simple headaches, how are we ever going to be able to cure complex diseases, either on the mental level or physical level, like cancers or schizophrenia or any other chronic diseases? So that was very clear that if my professor of neurology with 30 some years of experience can only prescribe another pill to manage the symptoms, if I follow the same route, I will be ending up doing the same thing in 30 years, just giving another pill that maintains the high blood pressure or the anxiety or the depression. That made me to actually study infectious diseases, because at least I said I will try to find out what is the cause and eliminate the cause. And we have done amazing progress in treating leprosy and tuberculosis and malaria and many other infectious diseases, because we could identify the pathogen. But as I was going through the infectious diseases, I realized there are a lot of people who are very susceptible to infectious diseases and others aren't. For instance, I lived in Africa for 8 years. I never got malaria and never did the prevention. And I had people some of my colleagues were taking malaria pill every week for the prevention, and they would still catch malaria. Mm-hmm. I had patients who would get a pneumonia, and I treat them, and 3 months later they come with another pneumonia, and 3 months later with another pneumonia, and then the antibiotic resistance would have happened. I realized that even in that area, even though we know there is a bacteria or virus, the susceptibility, the predisposition, the immune system of the patient plays a huge role. So in conventional medicine, we really don't do anything beyond giving those antibiotics or antivirals. Decided to look outside of conventional medicine to see if there are any answers there, not just for infectious diseases, but for helping the body to heal itself. So that's what made me to look into first acupuncture. That was the first area that I studied, and then became familiar with naturopathic medicine. I got a degree in naturopathic medicine, and then as I was studying naturopathic medicine, I became more and more familiar with homeopathy, and I fell in love with it for many reasons that we're going to probably discuss tonight.
Yes, wonderful. Yes, and when you mentioned a few topics that we're going to expand on, so that's perfect. And but before that, I want to ask you the big question: what is homeopathy, and how does it compare to other holistic, integrative methods? How does it compare to naturopathic medicine, and how is it different from conventional medicine? It's a big question, but
yes, yeah, and it's a very important question. I think the reason I fell in love with homeopathy is because as I was studying conventional medicine and naturopathic medicine, I realized that the only way to cure anything is to find out what is the cause, find out what is the real cause. If you don't identify the cause, you cannot cure. You can help, you can alleviate, either with drugs or with natural supplements. So to cure, you need to know what is the cause. But if I want to identify what is the cause of a headache, for instance, if I went and saw 10 different practitioners and I asked them what is the cause, I very likely will hear 10 different causes. If I approach a patient from a nutritional perspective, and a person has a headache, I want to know whether they have food allergies or sensitivities. If I'm a chiropractor, if I'm an acupuncturist, if I'm a herbalist, if I'm an osteopath, if I'm a neurologist, if I'm a psychologist, if I'm a naturopath, if I'm a homeopath, I have a completely different understanding of the cause. Everybody, based on the their expertise have a definition of the cause. So one thing became very clear to me as I went through all these modalities of naturopathic medicine. Really, naturopathic medicine is an umbrella that covers all the different modalities of homeopathic medicine. During those 4 years of naturopathic studies, we learn the foundations of all the natural healing approaches, including homeopathy. So if there are 10 different explanations for the cause of the disease, it tells me that I don't think a headache is caused by 10 different causes, but it's very likely triggered by 10 different things. So realize that very often when we tell the patients we want to know what is the cause of the disease, we're only actually looking for triggers, and we somehow confuse triggers for cause. So if I tell a patient, you need to avoid cheese for your headache to go away because you're sensitive to cheese, and they do that and the headache completely disappears, we both think that the cheese is the cause because they don't get headaches anymore since they avoided cheese or they avoided gluten or they avoided nuts, whatever may be the trigger. But if the patients ask me, well, how come 5 years ago I could have cheese without a headache? Then I have to tell them, well, your system is very different. Something has changed. And if they ask me what has changed, then I wouldn't know how to. I say, well, I don't know. But all I know is that it looks like your body is sensitive to this specific food. And we probably all know that once you avoid cheese for a while, the headache will go away and it's going to come back. And then you're going to be reacting to chocolate, and then you react to onion, and then you react to something else. The same thing is true really with any other approaches that is looking for triggers of the disease as opposed to identifying what is the real cause of the disease. So in order to identify the cause, so I'm explaining that to show how homeopathy is different, not only from conventional medicine, but from other natural approaches. If I want to know what is the cause of a headache, I have to ask myself, do I consider that the headache of a patient is independent of all their other symptoms and pathologies? Is this a disease, an entity on its own, or is this related to everything else that the patient has? So for instance, if the patient has a headache and a knee pain and an eczema and asthma, are there 4 different diseases? And if there are 4 different diseases, then I have to identify 4 different causes. But if they were all related to each other, then I don't need to look for 4 different causes. All I need to is to find out what is the common link between all those different diseases. So what is very clear that in conventional medicine, we have divided human beings to systems and parts and organs. And based on that, we have created wonderful specialists who know everything about the heart, become cardiologists, or know everything about the liver and become hepatologists or gastroenterologists or neurologists and orthopedic surgeons and so on. Human beings are divided into different organs, and for each organ we have a specialty. So if a person has a headache, they won't go see a respirologist, and if they have asthma, they won't go see a rheumatologist, because somehow in our perspective of human beings, we see lungs as a separate entity than the knees, and knees are separate entities than the skin. So we treat every part as different. Well, we can do the exact same thing in alternative medicine. That means it's quite easy to tell the patients, I need to treat your kidney, support your kidney by these supplements, and I need to support your liver and support your hormonal system, and you support your immune system and support your adrenal glands, and so on. So we end up giving the patients 5, 6, 7, 10 different supplements to support different parts of the body. We are treating the whole person, but we are treating each part in order to treat the whole person. The homeopathic understanding is that human beings are not like a machine that are made of parts. The machine is really built of parts. You can't treat the headlight independent of the carburetor and the exhaust and the muffler. But human beings are made from one cell, really. If you think of it, when the sperm and the egg get together, there is just only one cell. That one cell has a DNA that is unique to that individual. is not the DNA of their mom or their dad, even though it has the predisposition built into that DNA from the mother and the father. And that DNA will never exist in the future either. So there is a unique DNA that replicates itself to two, exact same DNA, and 2 becomes 4, and 4 becomes 8, and 8 becomes 16, and 32. This cell division gives rise to all the organs and systems, but every single cell of the body has the same DNA. Therefore, if something goes wrong at the very core of a person, it can have manifestations in many different organs and parts with different labels, but it doesn't mean those symptoms are independent of each other. So because of that, I learned to look at human beings the way I would look at a tree. Tree is a living organism. It makes more sense for us to be similar to a tree than a car. We're not robots. We are a living organism. Tree also comes from one seed. It has one trunk and it has many, many different branches. Branches could go in opposite directions and could have different thicknesses, but they're all connected together, thinking that the branches are not connected. No farmer would ever think that one branch of the tree needs Prozac and another branch needs Tylenol and the third branch needs a sleeping pill. Or one branch needs calcium, the next branch needs this herbal medicine, and the fourth branch needs something else. We can do that, but we're treating the tree as if it was made of different parts. Homeopathic medicine tend to think that all the branches are connected together. So even though we can treat the branches with different homeopathic remedies or with different supplements or with different drugs, the ideal cure is when you find the common denominators of every single symptom of the patient. So you take the tip of a branch, a symptom is the tip of a branch. You take that branch, that tip of the branch, and you go as deep as possible into that branch. And once you're done with that branch, you leave it alone and you look at the second branch and you do the same thing with it. And then you go to a third branch and then you do it with a fourth branch. And once you realize that all the branches are pointing to the same thing, then you know you're at the trunk of the tree. A homeopathic remedy is given for the trunk of the tree. Then you expect, once you heal the trunk, once you treat the trunk, to see impact on all the branches of the person. I think this approach is unique to homeopathic medicine. So that means if one branch of a tree is oak, you expect to see oak everywhere else. And if we don't see oak, then something may be wrong with our perception of the tree. So we have to continue our investigation with the patients until you identify that one thing that is responsible for everything. So this is a very long answer to say, when we talk about cause of disease, cause from a homeopathic perspective is that one thing that is responsible for everything that the patient is suffering from. So when I see in front of my patients who is 50 years old, I see them like a 50-year-old tree with many branches, and even some of the branches that don't exist anymore, they were parts of the tree, therefore they're very important. So I want to know about their childhood. And then I recognize that human beings are not just physical realities, then at the same importance I give to physical symptoms from head to toe, I give the same importance to the emotional parts of the person from their childhood until today. So all the traumas they have gone through, all the fears they have, all the phobias, all the nightmares that they have, all the recurring dreams that they have. And I give the same importance to the cognitive aspects of the patient, their capacity to analyze, the memory, the concentration, and also all the existential challenges that human beings have. As human beings, we always question self and we question life, and every belief system that we have is going to impact every decision we make our life. So from a homeopathic perspective, a human being is a physical, emotional, mental, spiritual unit. And if you want to study a person, you have to study the person in its entirety and find the common connections, the link between all those different parts of the person. Then you don't treat the mind separate from the body or the body separate from the mind. Once you treat the whole person as if it was one thing, then there is a chance for the body to heal itself.
Wonderful. So it's really about how we view the person, how we view the patient as a whole, as one being rather than a piecemeal of many different parts that are being treated with many different medicines or forms of treatment. Um, but when a homeopath looks at a person, do they actually find a cause? Is it possible to say this is the cause of your chronic problem? What would that be? Can you give us some examples?
Yeah, well, cause in homeopathy is again that one thing that is able to responsible the totality of the person. One way that I share with my patients to look at themselves and to find out what really needs to be cured in them is to again recognize that any system is unique and has a very unique defense mechanism. So from the day we were born, we have the specific weaknesses and the strength that we're born with. So like any tree, we have very deep roots. And those roots are actually what we inherit from our mom and dad and grandparents and great-grandparents. So they're very, very deep roots. So if a patient ends up having a headache because they are having cheese is not the cause. If the grandmother had a headache, that's the real cause because that predisposition is passed on to the child. If a person has an asthma, it's very likely because the predisposition to asthma existed in the roots of the patient. That means few generations ago, somebody has had asthma and so on. So the roots of the disease are very deeply built into the DNA of the patient, and whatever is external to us acts like a trigger. So cause is internal, triggers are external to the person. So to identify the cause, it's very important to look at the totality and see what does this totality point to. So the analogy I use for my patients, I ask them to think of themselves as a system that has very unique defense mechanism, and defense means being locked in a very specific way. When I leave my house in the morning, in order to protect my house, I lock it with a key. The purpose of the key is to lock my door so nobody else gets in. We all have a very unique defense mechanism in everything that we do, from the time we wake up until we go to bed. But when you talk about locking a system, then I know when I come back home at the end of the day, I use the exact same key to open the door. So a key that can lock the door is also a key that can open the door. This in homeopathy is called the law of similars. If a substance is able to produce a group of symptoms, if you study those symptoms and you see all those exact symptoms in a patient that hasn't been exposed to that substance but produces all the same symptoms, the same substance that can cause it, the same substance can cure it. That's the law of similars in homeopathy. Homeo means same, and pathos means the study of the disease. So like cures like is the law of homeopathy. So how do we know that all the symptoms of the patient are connected together? Is because for 200 years, way before conventional medicine starts doing researches on masses of people, homeopaths would expose a group of people, healthy individuals, to a specific substance and record all the symptoms that are produced at the physical level, emotional level, mental level, and existential level of the patient for a period of few months. So we knew very early on that one substance can produce 100, 200, 300 different symptoms in human beings. So then it's easy to see that those 300 symptoms are caused by one substance. I mean, we all know if you give arsenic to a patient, it uses few hundred symptoms in a group of people. Or if you give mercury to a group of people, because they use arsenic and mercury and sulfur and many other heavy metals and other poisons to treat people 200, 300 years ago. So we had a very good materia medica of the toxicology of many substances. So we already know that one substance is able to produce hundreds of different symptoms. Homeopaths tend to do a reverse engineering. They look at those 200-300 symptoms of the patients and see what does it look like, as if the patient has been poisoned by arsenic, as if they have been poisoned by mercury, as if they have been infected by a tuberculosis, as if they have been infected by syphilis, as if they have been, it doesn't matter. We tested hundreds of minerals, plants, animals, bacteria, viruses, fungi on human beings over the last 200 years. We have close to 3,000 homeopathic remedies now. That means we have 3,000 different pictures of the disease. So rather than having a label as migraine and anxiety and depression, we have patterns of the disease that we see in human beings. And so when a patient comes to my office, I try to find out what is this pattern that I see in front of me. Once I identify that pattern, I give a homeopathic preparation from that substance that is known to produce those symptoms. And once you do that, it's like you unlock the body. The body is locked in a specific way. I give the exact same lock, it goes in and it opens, and the body does all the healing. So I actually tell my patients homeopathic remedies that don't cure you, doesn't cure you. It unlocks your system, your body cures itself, if you only know how to unlock. That's again a brief description of what homeopathic medicines are and how they're different than other substances.
Yes, so we're trying to find that key that actually unlocks the very person in front of us, and it's going to be very unique one. And that key is the remedy, but it's only unlocking. And then we're going into our natural ability of our body to actually respond to that and heal.
That's right.
But our viewers may be asking themselves, is that really scientific? Is it just that somebody decided that that's going to be so, and now we follow it and keeping our fingers crossed is going to work? So how do we know this is actually a scientific discipline and scientific approach?
Well, from my perspective, after 35 years of doing homeopathic medicine and have been gone through conventional medicine and specialized in it, I can, without any doubt, that say the homeopathic approach to a human being is the most scientific approach to human being, only because it is the most logical approach to human being. It is a lot more logical to see a human being as interconnected and all symptoms related to each other, as opposed to thinking that symptom A has nothing to do with symptom B and has nothing to do with symptom C. I think that's one of the biggest disservice we have done to patients. This separation of human beings to parts and system has been amazing for advancement of basic sciences. We really know a lot about the heart. We know a lot about the liver. We know amazing things about the kidney, but we don't know how to heal patients suffering from symptoms more than just taking care of their symptoms. So we don't know what is causing and what is the connection, because conventional medicine has divided human being to parts. So what is scientific in homeopathic medicine is approach to a human being. The whole physical, mental, emotional is considered as one system. I think this is a very scientific approach. And therefore, homeopathic medicine is more scientific in its approach than conventional medicine when it comes to treating chronic diseases. The second thing is the science behind homeopathy. How do we know it is true? Well, first, we have tested homeopathic remedies on healthy people. So we do know that these remedies have produced many, many symptoms on groups of people. So that's the research that we do. And we have started those researches way before we do any double-blind placebo controlled in conventional medicine. And we have done placebo approaches in homeopathic subjects as well. I just want to say, as we're talking about placebo and homeopathic medicine, that homeopaths have learned how to use placebo. And in my practice, very often, I have to give a placebo to a patient without the patient knowing that it is placebo, in order for me to see what is the part of the placebo in the healing. Unfortunately, we are trained on how to use placebo to rule out whether the effect of a remedy is placebo or not. If we do have time, and if you're interested, we could talk about this a lot more. But I'm planning to give a talk on homeopathy, homeopathic science, and the placebo effect in about a month, in early June. I will be doing a presentation on science, homeopathy, and placebo. And I can go for over an hour on the details of what all those three are and what is the science behind homeopathy. But for a brief version of that is that there are many, many researches that have been tested by different independent sources that prove that homeopathy is not just placebo. Homeopathy is far superior to placebo. So those scientific papers exist. They're very solid papers, and anybody who really, unprejudiced, looked into those papers has attested to that. Unfortunately, there is a negative impression that has been given to homeopathy, but any of those views that say homeopathy hasn't been scientific has been discredited already, even by the authors of those. I will go more into detail in that in the future because I know today's purpose is not to talk about the science of homeopathy. But I can just say one brief things about how to know whether homeopathy is placebo or not. Just imagine a patient, not imagine, I have had, say, a 21-year-old patient who came to see me for migraine headache. This patient has gone through quite a few alternative therapies, have seen many practitioners already for his headaches. They all worked at the beginning and it stops working. Then started the conventional approaches. The painkillers at the beginning helped. The anti-migraine medication at the beginning helped, and then they stopped working. By the time I saw him, he was taking opioids in order to control the pain because the pain was so intense. And that was controlling his pain only to 70%. And he was on a daily pain. So this patient has already shown that he doesn't respond to placebo. Tylenol is better than placebo. Tylenol is not helping anymore. Advil is better. It's not helping anymore. Imitrex is better. It's not helping anymore. Codeine is better than placebo. It's not working anymore. So when I spent a couple of hours with him and gave him a homeopathic remedy made from a mineral, zinc sulfate, and within a month, his headaches had improved by 90%. So if a patient was going to respond to a placebo, it would have responded to any of the above drugs. But when a patient, so this makes me say that not homeopathy is only superior to placebo, it's actually superior to conventional drugs because the vast majority of patients who go see a homeopath, because they have to spend money in Canada to see a homeopath versus conventional medicine is free, they have already gone and have used substances that are superior to placebo without much effect. That's why they're willing to go and spend money and see a homeopath. And if now a homeopath gives a remedy that works much better than the drugs did, then it shows that homeopathic remedy is not only superior to placebo, but it's also superior to the drugs that they're using. So on an individual level, every patient who has used and they found that it is a lot more helpful than whatever conventional or other alternative approaches they use is just another proof that homeopathic remedy is superior to placebo.
Okay, great. Thank you so much for getting into this subject a little deeper. I know that we're going to share the information about your talk when you have it available, because I know this is going to be very fascinating. And I wanted to expand more on the issue of palliation and suppression of symptoms, kind of following that route, which is the way how traditional conventional medicine treats patients. So why is that important that we look at the issue differently, and how is homeopathy actually looking at this issue of suppression and palliation?
Well, this is a very important question, and it actually allows me to expand on what I have shared with you already about how is homeopathy different than conventional medicine. From a homeopathic perspective, the intelligence of the body is given great importance. the human beings are the most intelligent things on earth that we exist. The human system is the byproduct of millions of years of evolution. So when a system is producing a symptom, it's producing it in the most intelligent way. From a homeopathic perspective, the body is always trying to heal itself and is always trying to get rid of the disease. So if I perceive the symptoms of the patients as an attempt to cure, then I don't want to interfere with the symptoms of the patients. This is extremely important. If the symptoms are a manifestation of the defense mechanism of the body to get rid of something, then one of the worst things we can do is to suppress the symptoms. If anything, you want to encourage the body to express what it is doing better. So that means if I ate something that gave me diarrhea, diarrhea is a way to get rid of whatever is not good for me. My body is getting rid of the virus or is getting rid of the poison. If I take something to stop the diarrhea, I'm actually going against the body. From a homeopathic perspective, we look at what is the body doing already, because it's doing in a very intelligent way. We understand that the disease is the body's attempting to heal itself, but is not able to finish. It starts the healing, but it's not able to finish the healing. So we look at what is the body already doing, and then we look for the substance in nature that is known to produce those exact symptoms of the patient. So we give a homeopathic dilution of that substance to the body, and that helps the body to finish what it has started. So rather than the symptoms getting suppressed, the symptoms get expressed. The vast majority of healings that happen with homeopathic remedies, they go through a homeopathic aggravation first. So if I gave a remedy to a patient and they came and said, well, right after I took the remedy, I had the worst headache of my life, but since then I'm not getting any headache, then I know that the body has learned how to heal itself. And I didn't suppress it. I actually encouraged the body to express itself. So this is another way to understand the law of similars. Listen to the body to see what is it doing. Give it a substance that the exact match of the expression of the body. And how do we know that exact match? By testing those thousands of substances on healthy individuals to see what pictures of diseases they create. So we just match the state of the person with one of those substances. So because of that, suppression is never a good thing. When you suppress it, the body expresses. It's like when you cut a branch, all the energy that was going to that branch is going to go to another branch. It's not very unusual that people go to treat their headaches and the headache gets better and their insomnia gets worse. Then they go after the insomnia, their eczema gets worse. Then they go after the eczema, their asthma gets worse. They just go from one doctor to another or from one medication to another. The homeopathic approach is listen to the wisdom of the body, find the substance that can help the body to overcome all these symptoms at the same time. So I much rather give a remedy to a person and the patient coming back to tell me, since I took the remedy, it affected my sleep, it affected my energy, it affected my bowel movement, it affected my asthma, it affected my eczema. If I give one substance that affects all those different areas, then I know all those things are related to each other. And I'm much happier if they tell me that everything got a bit worse before it got better, then I know I'm not suppressing any disease. Anytime I see that the body gets a bit worse before it gets better, then I know that we are curing as opposed to suppressing.
Yes, so we're enhancing that ability of the body to actually take care of the disease deeper. And the symptoms are just a manifestation and a way for us to know what is actually being cured and how it is being cured so that we can assist that healing force within the body to actually work. And the question, though, is coming up for me is, these days we can go to a grocery store and buy a homeopathic remedy, right? What, on the other hand, when you're talking about it, it seems like actually finding the right remedy is a very complex and in-depth process. It's not just as simple as grabbing one sugar pill and taking it for your headache, just like your regular medicine. So, how would you approach this? What should people know about self-treatment, home prescribing?
Well, I think the vast majority of patients who become interested in homeopathy is because they did some self treatment first. That means either through a friend or through a student of homeopathy or through going to a pharmacy or a health food store, they come across a homeopathic remedy for a condition and they tried it and it worked for them. And then they say, oh, homeopathy works. So I think it is very important for really anybody to learn about the healing powers of 10 or 15 different homeopathic remedies. These are, we call them big general remedies. So when you're having an injury, when you're having some forms of fevers or some form of diarrheas, there are many homeopathic remedies that have been used for those conditions. So with some basic search, anybody can do a bit of self-treatment. The important thing is not to treat a symptom only, but treat the whole system. This should be a temporarily approach until you find a homeopath who is experienced and knows what he's doing and treats the cause of treat the whole system, as opposed to treating a sore throat. But so I think as a first approach for treating acutes, it's a really good idea to use homeopathic remedies. But as soon as you treat something chronic, it's very important to find an experienced homeopath who knows how to treat chronic diseases. So the homeopath will help you to get rid of the predisposition to the disease, as opposed to just treating symptoms with a homeopathic remedy. But homeopathy is so giving that you can use it to treat a branch, or you can use it to treat a few of the branches together also. And those remedies aren't really suppressing either. They're helping the body, but helping the body partially. But the role of a good quality homeopath is to look at the totality of the person at all time and find the remedy that covers the maximum totality of the patient.
So people who are watching may be getting curious and interested and asking themselves about how do I go about it? How do I find the right homeopath? Do you have any advice or any suggestions in terms of choosing the right practitioner for you?
Yes, I think referral is the best thing. If you know a person who says, I have seen this homeopath and has been able to help me, that's already a very good sign. How many years a homeopath is in practice, how many years they studied to become a homeopath? Are they coming from a school that is accredited, that is approved, that has programs that have been recognized, that has a track record also of educating homeopaths? Versus they took some weekend courses and called themselves a homeopath. And fortunately, in Ontario, homeopathy is regulated. So when somebody calls himself a homeopath, then they have to have been gone through a rigorous training to be able to call themselves a homeopath. But the more a homeopath is in practice, the more experience they have to be able to identify chronic diseases. But the beautiful thing about homeopathy is also that you may have a very complex disease, but you may need a very simple remedy. So you may have a complex disease and very chronic condition and go find a homeopath who just graduated from a school, and you express your symptoms, and the homeopath gives you a very common remedy, and it matches your symptoms, and you get better really fast. Now, when I graduated from the homeopathic school, many of my patients did really well with the well-known remedies. The difference between today and 30 years ago is that now I can use hundreds of other remedies that are not so well-known too, which I couldn't do 20, 30 years ago. So the more experience we have, the more remedies we have at our fingertips, the more patients we can heal at a deeper level.
Beautiful. Yes, because there is a system that we follow prescribing remedies. So in a way, somebody who studied properly and just graduated will have the same tools, just not as expensive and not as in depth. But
That's
yeah,
right.
and I think it's just important to know, who do you feel right with? Who can you speak with? Who can you actually, tell your story to the best? Because it's so important to that your homeopath understands who you are as a person, right?
That's right. Yeah. Yeah. And the homeopathic consultation can be short for half an hour, or it can be long for 3, 4, 5 hours. Every person is very different. But I would say the vast majority of homeopaths see a patient for 1 to 2 hours first, and based on the quality of the information they get, they decide to whether they need more time to go deeper into the case, or they prescribe a remedy already at the first visit. I tend to not to prescribe a remedy at the first visit because I like to see the totality of the patient. And it's very hard to see the totality of a 50-year-old in 2 hours, really. Sometimes I take 3, 4 hours for me to know everything about the patient.
So we discussed some really in-depth subjects in a very short way. So of course, we'll be creating more interviews so that our audience can learn more about those subjects. But as a conclusion, what I really wanted to ask you, where do you see homeopathy actually going in the next decade or 2 or 3? And why do we actually need homeopathy in our societies today? And what can we do to make it more widespread, more understood, more trusted?
Um, I have no doubt that homeopathy has a beautiful future because it's working so deep. Every single day, I witness a patient coming and saying, I haven't felt this good in a very long time, or I never felt this good in my life. And because I see that the homeopathic remedy is working so amazingly and so deeply for a lot of patients, then I know there is a truth in homeopathy. And I'm sure that anywhere there is a truth, it's going to prevail the falsehood. So homeopathy is a real science. It is good. It has survived 200 years of attack, and it will survive any other attack in the future. But fortunately, those attacks, I think, are behind us because so many high quality research in homeopathy have proven that homeopathy is not just a placebo anymore. And also because a lot of much better curriculums of homeopathy are happening all around the globe. Schools are getting better and better in training homeopaths around the globe. So because of that, homeopathy is going to flourish and thrive. Homeopathy is already the second largest system of medicine used in the world. Just right after the conventional medicine, homeopathic medicine is more widely used in the world than any other system of the medicine. In Canada, more than 60% of population have already used homeopathic medicine. So I have no doubt that the future of homeopathy is really bright, and we need to do hundreds of other researchers in homeopathy, and we will do that as funds become available to homeopaths as well. And we're going to produce much better homeopathic students and practitioners in the future as well. So I'm extremely optimistic about the future of homeopathy.
Beautiful. That's a wonderful way to conclude. But I also want to ask you, is there anything that you wanted to mention and any message for our viewers today that you really would like to share?
Well, I'm sure everybody is probably able to see my enthusiasm and passion for homeopathy. It's really, there is nothing more meaningful for me to sit in front of somebody who has been suffering for years and years and years, listen to their story, try to find the connection between all their different symptoms, identify a substance that can help their body to heal itself, and then seeing the patient a month later and hearing that they feel so much better. So I want to really encourage anyone who hasn't tried homeopathy yet to go and find a homeopath and have a personal experience of what a homeopathic consultation is about. The homeopathic consultation itself is a very deep consultation. It allows patients to know themselves in a way that they never knew themselves before. And for anyone who is interested in studying in natural medicine or in medicine in general, to really look deeper into homeopathy. It's really amazing what you can do with homeopathy if you learn the system. So I really want to encourage our brilliant, bright students from high schools who are looking to become a health professional in the future to also consider becoming a homeopath, because it's an amazing system of medicine that it is time tested and is used by millions of people all over the world. So those are my wishes, and I think that's the best way to know personally whether homeopathy works or not, as opposed to the hearsay of others, those who are against it or for it. So have an independent and personal understanding of homeopathy, but also for anybody who is in alternative medicine, in natural health medicine, to consider incorporate homeopathy into their practice or into their future, because it's a very potent medicine.
Beautiful. Well, thank you so much. And I know you're very enthusiastic, and I am so honored and grateful to have your enthusiastic perspective on homeopathy today. And I know that a lot of people will be more interested, and hopefully, many of you will actually reach out to a homeopath and explore how homeopathy can help with chronic illness and chronic issues that you've been going through. So I want to thank you so much, Dr. Shahram, for your time today and sharing with our viewers. I really appreciate you being here, and thank you so much. And thank you everybody for watching. So we'll see you soon. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Monica. It was a pleasure being with you and being in front of your audience, and I'm looking forward to seeing you in the future as well.
Very much so. Thank you so much, Dr. Shahram.